Welcome back to another episode of Code of Culture. Are you part of an open source project? For sure you have realized that maintainers work way much harder than the rest. Today we will explore the interesting similarities between the world of the open source project maintainers and the Big Man role documented in Melanesian tribes by anthropologists. We will dive into the details of both, look at how these roles are similar, and see the challenges they face as leaders. So let's get started. The big man is a concept from social and political anthropology that was first studied by Marshall Salins in the 1960s. The big man role has been studied in the Melanesian societies, particularly in the Papua New Guinea. In these societies, a man can decide to become a big man, an influential leader who gains power through hard work, charisma, and generosity. This process typically starts with a man deciding to take on the role of big man. He convinces others to follow him and demonstrating his abilities, working harder than his peers and even involving his closest relatives and family members. One example of the kind of task that he can take to become a big man can be building a common house for the men in the village, where he usually prepares big meals and offerings for the assistants. This way, he shows his dedication and hard work to the community, and by doing so, he gains respect and followers, eventually becoming a central figure within the group. Does this sound similar to anyone? If you have ever been a maintainer of an open source project, you might know what I'm talking about. Often, maintainers begin as individual programmers, working on a side project just for fun. Over time, as the project gains traction, the maintainer is faced with an interesting number of tasks such as handling issues, feature requests, code reviews, and support requests from the community. Well, as the project grows, the maintainer's roles evolve from a single programmer to a leader responsible for managing the entire project and its community. In order to meet the growing demands, maintainers typically work harder and devote more time to the project than other contributors. This extra effort can lead to a great deal of stress and even burnt out, as the maintainer struggles to balance the workload with his personal life. Despite these challenges, maintainers continue to push themselves, demonstrating their dedication and commitment to the project. This hard work and perseverance can help gain the respect and support of their followers, mirroring the process of the Melanesian Big Man. So, let's get deeper into the similarities between the Big Man role and open source maintainers. First, both roles involve an individual in stepping up to lead a group of people, be it in a traditional societies or in a software development community. The big men and the open source maintainers demonstrate their dedication and work ethic to gain the respect and support of their followers, and they do it by dedicating more time and effort than the rest of the community that gathers around them. But what happens when the group is big enough? Another interesting connection between the big man idea and the open source projects is the concept of the benevolent dictator for life. This term refers to an open source project leader who has significant influence over the project's direction and decisions, but maintains a benevolent approach to leadership. The benevolent dictator for life leadership styles share similarities with the Melanesian big man role. Both roles involve leading a community and making important decisions on its behalf. The benevolent dictator for life, like the big man, gains the respect and support of their followers through their dedication, hard work, and ability to foster collaboration. They also take on the responsibility of mediating conflicts and making decisions that benefits the community as a whole. Guido van Rossum, the creator of the Python programming language, is the perfect example of that. As the benevolent dictator for life of the Python project, Van Rossum guides the development of the language and helps resolve disputes within the Python community. His leadership style embodies the key characteristics of big men. He has earned the respect of the Python community through his commitment to the project and his willingness to listen and consider the options of others. Another similarity is that in both cases, the success of the community is largely dependent on the leader's ability to balance authority with the genuine concern of the well-being of their followers. The benevolent dictator for life and the big man both need to be able to make thought decisions while remaining approachable and open to input from their community. This combination of strong leadership and empathy helps to create a sustainable and thriving community, whether it's in the context of traditional tribes or in an open source software project. Lastly, both the big man and the open source maintainer rely on their ability to foster collaboration and cooperation among their followers. In the case of big man, this might involve organizing community-wide projects or events to bring people together. For the open source maintainer, this could entail creating an inclusive and welcoming environment for new contributors and fostering a sense of camaraderie within the community. An example of this is the Ruby on Rails project, led by David Heinemeier Hansson. Rails has grown into a large and successful open source project, in part due to the positive and collaborative atmosphere that Hansson and other contributors have fostered. The roles of the big man and open source maintainers share striking similarities, from their dedication and hard work to their roles as mediator and their focus on community building. These parallels helps us understand the challenges and responsibilities that leaders in both traditional societies and open source software communities face. Unfortunately, there are times when a big man fails or loses the support of the followers. This can occur when he is no longer able to meet the expectations of his community or when another individual challenges his leadership. The consequences of such failure can be significant. The big man might lose his status, influence, and the resources he has accumulated. In some cases, this can even lead to conflicts within the community. For instance, in Papua New Guinea, there have been cases where the big men have failed to maintain their influence due to their inability to provide resources or mediate conflicts effectively. This can result in their followers abandoning them in favor of a more effective leader, leaving the community altogether, and in some cases even killing the failed big man. I hope this not happen in open source communities. Well, similarly, in open source maintainers, they can experience failure and abandonment. This might happen when they are overwhelmed by the project's demands, or when they are unable to address critical issues or requests. The community might choose to move to another project or maintainer, leaving the original maintainer feeling defeated or demoralized. And, of course, there are also examples of these in the open source projects. This is the story of the Diaspora Social Network, an open source project designed to be a decentralized alternative to Facebook. The project gained significant attention and funding, but the maintainers struggled to manage the project's growth and the expectations of the community. Eventually, some of the core developers left the project and the community's enthusiasm disappeared. The founders also left the project to start a meme-generating site in 2012. While Diaspora still exists today, it has not achieved the level of success its creator initially hoped for. In both cases, the consequences of failure can be severe for both the big men and the open source maintainers. For the big men, this might mean the loss of status and resources, even life, while for the maintainers, it can lead to a decline or abandonment of the projects they have worked so hard to build. This highlights the importance of effective leadership in managing the challenges that come with leading a community. But there is another approach. What happens when the big man influence grows so strong that he becomes a chieftain, with even more authority and control over the community? Likewise, an open source project maintainer might evolve into a dictator. One example of an open source project maintainer who took a more dictatorial role is Linus Torvalds, the creator of the Linux operating system. While Torvalds started Linux as a personal project and initially displayed characteristics of a big man, his leadership style evolved over time. As the Linux project grew, Torvald became known for making decisions without always seeking input from the community, and his sometimes abrasive communication style led to him being perceived as a dictator. Despite this, Linux remains a highly successful project, in part due to Torvalds' strong vision and decision. However, it is important to recognize that not all projects led by a dictator will be successful, and this leadership style can sometimes lead to low creativity and alienation of the community members. Another interesting discussion is when a leader gains enough power to use authority instead of influence. Well, in political anthropology, this has been seen the transition from hunter-gatherer societies to agricultural settlements. There is a key turning point when the leader starts to organize the common resources of the community in barns or storages, and how he enforces the collaboration of the whole community to contribute to the common barn. In the open source world, this transition can be seen when the project gets enough traction and important that people accept losing part of the decision power or surrogate it to the soft dictator in exchange of the experience, knowledge, prestige, or working opportunities that can rise from being an active member of the community. This is one of the few scenarios where the values of horizontal and peer collaboration of the open source can be broken as a commitment for the good of the project. To summarize, today we have explored the fascinating parallels between the Melanesian Big Man and the open source maintainers. We have seen how both roles involve leadership, dedication, and the ability to inspire others. However, both roles also comes with their challenges, such as the potential for failure and further transition to another kind of leadership. Thank you for joining us in this episode of Code of Culture.